Okay, so this morning, it is my plan to finish the song this morning so we can move on to other things next week. That is my plan. Sometimes plans don't work out, but it is my plan. Also, as we discussed many months ago now, I've been enamored by the Bible Project's video of this song, and I want to play that at the end of the lesson. So I've got a little clock on my computer. Sometimes I lose track of time. So if it gets to 9:20, somebody scream at me because I don't want to miss this video. And I'll it's about a 7-minute video. It's not long, but it summarizes in 7 minutes what I've been talking about now, including this morning, for 17 weeks. So this is our 17th lesson on the Song of Songs. I could go on, but I'm realizing at this point that we're starting to get repetitive, and especially even in the song itself. And I don't want to just constantly say the same thing over and over again. The song is only 8 chapters. You can read it. I read it regularly, and you can read through it in half hour, 45 minutes or so. It doesn't take long to read through the song. And as I shared before, I've just been reading through it in different translations, and that's been a real blessing to me. Here we've got the 6-song structure. I've had this slide up here forever, and I do this to sort of give us a little jumping off point. And last week we sort of half and half went through the 4th song, which is a wasp. This is and the dream sequence where the girl is on her bed. She's dreaming that her lover is absent from her, and then they come back together. And during that dream sequence, she gives her praise of her lover's good looks. And then we move into the 5th song. And 5th song is a long song, as you can see. It goes from chapter 6, verse 4, all the way through chapter 8, verse 4. And this song, as long as it is very repetitive. The first half of the song is the young man extolling his bride's beauty. Once again, he tells her that her hair is like a flock of goats. Once again, he tells her that her teeth are like shorn sheep, and each one has its twin, and she's got all of her teeth. Once again, he is enamored with her upper anatomy, and and he really gets into it in this song. So I'm not going to get into that online. You can read it for yourself. But then, right around the middle of chapter 7, toward the end of chapter 7, the girl takes over. And let me just go back a slide. So, the beloved asserts herself. As I've shared all along, this whole song, from start to finish, is very much written from the girl's point of view. It's written from the standpoint of mostly of what she is feeling. And we see a whole range of emotions with her. She's nervous about her own appearance in chapter 1. We hear about her dreams, the dreams where she's on her bed and her lover is gone. He's absent from her. We never hear what he's thinking about during those times of separation, but we know what she's feeling. She's feeling anxious. She wants to find him. She goes out searching for him. Basically, when the guy talks, he's only talking about how beautiful she is. I say only. That's important. Guys, listen, that's important. It's important that our wives hear how beautiful they are from our lips. But that's basically all he does. Throughout the song, though, she's the one who is asserting herself, and it really comes home to roost in the 5th song and into the 6th song, starting in chapter 7, verse 10, and we'll get to there in just a second. But as she asserts herself, she uses various strong and assertive language. She defines their relationship. She talks about what she would like to do. She says some things that are very provocative that we'll see in a second. And it's her basically taking over the song, and she takes it over till the end of the song. So let's let's go back. This is a little bit of review from last week, but I want to see where we're heading with this. This is a song of belonging. There are 3 times, and in a second you'll see all 3 verses on the slide, 3 times where the girl is defining the relationship. And all 3 times it's the girl speaking, not the guy, and she's the one defining the relationship. And I want us to see the progression here because it is a neat progression. She starts off in verse 2:16, and we saw this probably a couple months ago. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He browses among the lilies. Now, browses among the lilies, that's sexual language, sexual imagery there. But what I want to focus on, my beloved is mine, and I am his. That is marriage language. That is union language. That is commitment language. That is belonging language. And then over in chapter 6, she says it again, but she says it slightly different. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. Again, he browses among the lilies. Look at what happened here. She switched the order. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. First time she said, my beloved is mine, and I am his. Now she has switched the order. And then, in chapter 7, verse 10, when she takes over the song to finish it off, she changes it up a little bit again. I am my beloved's, his desire is toward me. Now, different scholars have different views, as they do with every single verse of this song. Michael Fox, the Jewish scholar who I've been relying on a lot, basically says these are 3 different ways of saying essentially the same thing, and they are. But Hudson Taylor, in his commentary, notes a neat progression here. In chapter 2, verse 16, she's claiming him. My beloved is mine. Okay? She's looking at it from her own standpoint. He's mine. Oh, and I'm his too. In chapter 6, her focus is changing a little bit. She's becoming a little bit less self-focused and thinking more about her beloved. I am his, I am my beloved's. Oh, and he's mine too. Her focus has shifted. She's not so much talking about what is hers, her possessory rights. She's talking about now her lover's possessory rights over her. They take precedence. They go to the forefront. And my beloved is mine. And then in chapter 7, she doesn't even talk about what's hers at all. By the time we get to chapter 7, verse 10, she's not thinking about her rights, her possessory rights. She's not thinking in those terms. I am my beloved's, and now she says something that from her emotional standpoint is even more profound. His desire is toward me. His desire is toward me. She's not claiming a right to possession of her. Rather, she's recognizing she has him because of his intense desire for her. And that's just so neat. It goes from he's mine, he's mine, he's mine. I'm almost picturing children or grandchildren. Give me, it's mine. To now, his desire is toward me. His desire is toward me. And it's interesting, looking at the Hebrew word there for desire, this word only appears 3 times in the entire Old Testament. And the first time, as you can guess, it's in Genesis chapter 3. The woman has eaten of the fruit. Adam and Eve have both eaten of the fruit, the forbidden fruit. And in response to that, God lays out the curses for Adam and Eve. For Adam, he's going to work by the sweat of his brow to get any fruit out of the ground. But for Eve, sorry ladies, giving birth hurts now. I have no idea what it would have been like before the fall, but it hurts now. And secondly, he says to Eve, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Same desires as put in this verse. Your desire will be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. The next time we see this verse, or this word, is in the story of Cain and Abel, where Cain is jealous of Abel for the sacrifices, and God said, sin is crouching at the door. His desire is for you, Cain, and you must rule over him. So those first two, as commentaries point out, those first two instances of the word desire are not necessarily in positive light. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now, I don't want to belabor what that means, but let me just throw this out so we don't walk away with false impressions. I don't think that that is God's way of putting up a governmental standard in marriage, that your desire is going to be for your husband, and therefore he gets to rule over you. So if he wants to go eat lunch at McDonald's today after church, you got to go along with him. That's not what I think he's saying there. I do think, and I'm just going to say it, it's going to be somewhat sexist in the sense that I do believe that there are very real emotional differences between men and women. And one of those emotional differences, I believe, is that you ladies are much more emotionally invested into your relationships, in that your sense of self-worth and self-image is tied very much to your relationships. Your desire will be for your husband. When it says he shall rule over you, I think that's an emotional ruling. Your emotional well-being depends very much on how your husband, lover treats you. When you talk to young men and young women in love, and they're talking about their lovers, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, or whatever, boys and girls speak in different terms. And I've just noticed this as I've had conversations over the years. When you ask a girl, tell me about your boyfriend. Oh, he's so kind to me. He treats me nicely. He brings me flowers. He takes me out on dates. He does this, he does this, he does this. And it's because of what he does that stirs the emotions of the young lady. Guys don't talk like that about their girlfriends. We don't, because our emotions are tied more, sadly to say, by what we do, our work. We get our sense of self-worth by our accomplishments more so than our relationships. It's just a difference. So I think that's what God was talking about there in Genesis 3. I think that curse, if you can call it a curse, is that your emotions, ladies, are very much tied to how your man, boyfriend, fiance, husband, whatever, treats you. And I think that's what that's talking about. But now, this girl's flipping the script a little bit. She's recognizing that, yeah, there are differences, but we're also more alike than maybe we want to admit. I am my beloved's, his desire is toward me. Same desire that God spoke to Eve about, but now it's the desire of the man for the woman. She has beguiled him in a good way. He is responding to her in a good way. His emotions are responding to her behavior and her actions in a good way. And this young lady is noticing this, and she's rejoicing in it. She's rejoicing in it. One of the books that I've been using by Ariel and Shauna Block puts it this way. In light of this similar wording between chapter 7 of the song and Genesis chapter 3, the song reads almost like a deliberate reversal of Genesis 3:16, turning it upside down by making the woman the object of desire rather than the man. And instead of the dominion of a man over the woman, the present verse speaks of a relationship of mutuality. expressed in a formula of reciprocal love. And this is one thing that really comes out very loud and very clear in this song. This is not a one-sided love relationship. This isn't the husband loving the wife and the wife passively responding. She is very much active. This is very much a mutual relationship. I mean, if I can even be so bold, this may be the first feminist writing in history, or one of them. These love songs, whether it's the Jewish or the Egyptian or the Sumerian, these are very feminist in the sense that the women take charge in these songs. They are very assertive. They are very much taking charge. And there is very much a mutuality of the love between the two of them. This isn't a husband saying, hey, woman, this is what we're going to do and you're going to like it. That's foreign to these songs. And it's I don't know, to me it's just neat. Then after chapter 7, verse 10, we go into verses 11 and 12. And here the bride again asserts herself. And this is kind of new for this song. Here the bride is speaking, and I'm calling her the bride now. Most Bible translations call her the bride. Certainly, unless, depending on your viewpoint, some people say that they are married throughout the song. Other people say that they are unmarried throughout the song. I'm of the belief that certainly by chapter 7, these folks are married. Regardless of how they went through the process of getting married, they're married. And so I'm going to call her the bride. And she says here, come, my beloved, let us go out into the field. Let's lodge in the villages. Let's go early up to the vineyards. Let's see whether the vine has budded, the blossom is open, and the pomegranates are in flower. There I will give you my love. What's unique about this is that there have been two other times in the song where the man has said to the woman, come away with me. Come, let's go here. Come, let's go there. Now it's the girl saying it to the guy. Okay? Now it's the girl saying it to the guy. Come, my beloved. Let's go out into the field. And this is where she is asserting herself. And as I say, she is asserting herself now for the rest of the chapter and the rest of the song. In fact, let me just take a few seconds and read all of this in context. I'm going to start in chapter 7, verse 10. And what I want to do here is read through 8, verse 4, just for now. And then we'll pick it up from there. Because this ends the fifth song, the fifth division of the songs. I am my beloved's and his desire is for me. And this is all the girl talking pretty much this whole time. I am my beloved's and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved. Let us go forth into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early in the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and over our doors and all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. Then she says something kind of interesting. Oh, that you were like a brother to me who nursed at my mother's breast. If I met you outside, I would kiss you and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother and into the chamber of the one who bore me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the juice of my pomegranates. Oh, that his left hand were under my head and that his right hand embraced me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not stir up or awaken love until it is ready. And there with those last two verses, verses 3 and 4, this fifth song ends exactly the same way as the very first song ended in chapter 2. And once again, the song divisions don't match the chapter divisions, and that's a real shame as we're trying to sort this all out. So here we've got, this is the girl asserting her desire for her beloved. This is the girl inviting her beloved to come with her out into the field, into the villages, into the vineyards. And, there I will give you my love. That is what it sounds like. This is physical intimacy that she's talking about. But this is her initiating all of this. And then, again, that ends, chapter 8, verse 4, ends the 5th song. And then we go into the final song. And this final song is just really weird. It is just so really weird because it just jumps around. It's almost like the poet just had a bunch of thoughts they wanted to get down on paper, and they got them down, and they're scattered about. Let me just read through it, starting at verse 5. Who is that coming up from the wilderness, leaning upon her beloved? Okay, this is probably the daughters of Jerusalem speaking at this point. They're talking about the girl. And then from here on out, I think it's the girl speaking for the most part. Well, under the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she who bore you was in labor. Set me as a seal upon your heart. This is the girl talking. As a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, a raging flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If one offered it for love all the wealth of one's house, it would be utterly scorned. We have a little sister. This is probably her brothers talking now, talking about her when she was younger. We have a little sister, and she has no breasts. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build upon her a battlement of silver. But if she is a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. And then the girl takes over talking. I was a wall, and my breasts were like towers. Then I was in his eyes as one who brings peace. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal-Hamon. He entrusted the vineyard to keepers. Each one was to bring for its fruit 1,000 pieces of silver. My vineyard, my very own, is for myself. You, O Solomon, may have the 1,000, and the keepers of the fruit the 10,000, or the 200. O you who dwell in the gardens, my companions are listening for your voice. Let me hear it. Make haste, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag upon the mountains of spices. And that's it. Huh? Did I miss the happily ever after? If this were a Hallmark movie, it would end without the closing kiss. I mean, this is just weird. It just drops off. So let's go back and look at some of this stuff. I'm not going to go through all of this. Some of it we've talked about in different contexts. But let me go back and look at verses 5 and 6. This is from the Net translation, the New English translation. And here they very clearly say who they think is speaking. And the speakers, usually you can tell who the speaker is from the context. But Hebrew translators, they have a leg up on us because Hebrew is a very gendered language, like Greek, like so many languages, much more so than English. And the word form will change depending on if it's a man or a woman speaking. And that doesn't necessarily come through in the English. And so as they're translating it, they can look at the word forms and they can, oh, this is a feminine word form, therefore the girl's speaking, and vice versa. So here the maidens are speaking to the lady about the guy. Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? Let me take that back. The maidens about his beloved. They are speaking about the girl. Okay? Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? The guy and the girl are coming up together. Okay? They're coming up together. She's leaning on his arm. Then, in mid-verse, the girl takes over. And now she's talking to her lover. And this is a weird thing. We just got to deal with it. Under the apple tree I aroused you. There your mother conceived you. There she who bore you was in labor of childbirth. And A couple times now, we have seen where the girl wants to engage in physical intimacy in the place where her mother engaged in physical intimacy. Go back to Genesis. Isaac took Rebekah into Sarah's tent to consummate their marriage. There's something going on there in Jewish culture that I don't fully understand, but this is important to the girl. At the end of her first dream over in chapter 3, she said, I held on to my beloved, and I would not let go until I took him to the room where my mother conceived me. And now she's talking about being under the apple tree where her lover had been conceived. Now, this gets really weird and hinky in the sense that this Hebrew word up there in red, conceived and labor of childbirth, that's the same Hebrew word there. And it can refer to either the act of conception or the act of giving birth. And so translators have a real hard time. In the New Revised Standard Version, it says, there your mother was in labor with you. There she who bore you was in labor. So the New Revised Standard Version reads this as basically her lover was born under the apple tree. Other translators, looking at the whole tenor of the song as a love song, say, which is more likely, that you're going to conceive under an apple tree or be born under an apple tree? And so they're taking the other approach that maybe conception under the apple tree is probably more likely. But what is interesting and fascinating is how, again, different translators look at it. And I want to look at how St. Jerome looked at it. Now, we go back to our discussion when we were talking about how Jews and Christians have developed over the centuries different attitudes about marriage and physical intimacy. And the Jewish attitude has always been very positive. They expect everybody to get married. Rabbis, everybody, no exceptions. This is all part, they view it as the human obedience to the very first command to be fruitful and multiply. So for them, this is a duty upon all humanity. Everybody is expected to get married, and everybody is expected to at least try to have children. And they expect people to get married very young. This is why I keep referring to these lovers as boy and girl, guy and girl. These folks are most likely, almost positively not out of their teens. These folks are probably teen lovers. In the Jewish culture, you were expected to be married by the time you were 20. And that went all the way up through the rabbinical period. I'm not that in tune to modern day Jewish culture, so I don't know how it works today, but certainly at that time. Christian attitudes towards marriage and sexuality developed very differently, as we saw when we looked at it earlier with St. Augustine and St. Jerome. They took a very, very, very negative attitude towards physical intimacy, even physical intimacy within marriage. Jerome went so far as to basically say that even if you are married, the preferred state is a state of celibacy. You should be married and sexually pure as long as you can be. Augustine allowed for physical intimacy in order to make babies, because if everybody did what Jerome said, the human race would have died out, 1,600 years ago. But Augustine allowed it for physical intimacy, but pretty much not for anything else. He pretty much took the view that all human conception involves some level of lustful sin. And so I say all this as a prelude to when Jerome was translating this verse. He translated it this way. I'm getting this from the Catholic Public Domain version. Under the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was corrupted. There she who bore you was violated. And that's how Jerome saw the song. Jerome had he wrote a commentary on the Song of Songs, and his commentary looked at the song from the standpoint that this is a song extolling the virtues of virginity. When it talks about feeding among the lilies, those lilies are virgins who remain virgins. Everything that pretty much gets interpreted sexually, he interprets it as a celebration of celibacy and virginity. This Catholic public domain version is a translation of the Latin, and the Latin was Jerome's translation of the Hebrew. So it's just, again, this is not an accurate translation of those words. Corrupted and violated is not an accurate translation. I'm not saying that as a Hebrew scholar. I'm just saying that, from what I can gather from all the Hebrew resources I have. So we move fast forward to verses 6 and 7, and this is the only passage of the Bible, of the Song of Songs that seems to actually have a teaching. An overt actual teaching where the girl is saying, okay, here's what you want to learn about love. She says, set me as a seal on your heart, as a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death. She has some words there about jealousy that I've taken out just to make the words fit on the slide. And those words about jealousy are harder even to interpret. But then she says this, many waters can't quench love. Neither can floods drown it. If a man would give all the wealth of his house for love, he would be utterly scorned. And this is her moral teaching in the song. This is to try to summarize what we've been talking about with this young couple making love in the gardens for 7 chapters. Set me as a seal on your heart. According to Michael Fox, the scholar I've been following on this, he says that this implies a belonging and a special intimacy. To set a seal on the heart, and to set a seal on the arm. If they're not married, she's actually here proposing marriage if they're not married. She wants that special intimacy with him. This almost sounds a little bit like Ruth and Boaz when Ruth goes into the threshing floor, uncovers Boaz's feet, climbs into bed next to him and says, cover me with your cloak. Okay? For a man to cover a woman with his cloak was to marry her. And so Ruth is essentially asking Boaz, please marry me. Okay? We don't think like that in 21st century Hallmark America. Okay? That's not the way we think. That's not the way we behave. That was not unusual in the Old Testament. It was just a different world, different culture. So here she is, again, being very assertive, saying, set me as a seal on your heart. She wants him to enter into this deep belonging and special intimacy. And then she says, and this is all part of the same sentence, for love is strong as death. And Fox suggests it's strong in the sense that it's demanding as death. Basically what she is saying is, my love for you is so great. My love for you is so great that it demands our intimacy. Our love for one another is so strong that it demands that we have this special belonging, going back to that old Hebrew word hesed, this belonging, this covenant relationship in which we are joined together. And she's saying here at this point in time, bring it all together. Bring it all together. And then, many waters can't quench love. This is a celebration of love, an absolute celebration of love. Many waters can't quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man would give all the wealth of his house for love, he would be utterly scorned. What do you think about that last sentence there? If a man would give all the wealth of his house for love, he would be utterly scorned. I mean, part of me is wondering, huh? Go ahead, Ron.
I think he's talking about to offer everything I have for love would not be enough.
Okay, it would not be enough. Okay, so Ron's saying to offer everything you have for love would not be enough. Okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. I mean, in my way of thinking, what you want to say is love is worth more than money. Okay, obviously love is worth more than money. So if I give up everything I own for love, that sounds like a good thing to me. But she's saying here that he would be utterly scorned. He would be utterly scorned. And I think the idea here is you can't buy love. You can't buy it. It's priceless. And for a guy to say, okay, honey, I'll give you all my money if you'll marry me. Okay? Ladies, how many of you are going to respond favorably to that kind of a proposal? Okay? It's not there.
That wouldn't have been my
Yeah,
beginning of our relationship.
Yeah. I mean, that's just not the way we think of it. Yes, I mean, it's implied when you get married, what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, but you don't go into a loving marriage thinking about money. Yeah, Phil.
The footnote in my Bible, verse 7, says that true love cannot be quenched nor bought. To attempt to buy it is to despise it.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that for the folks online. Phil's Bible has a footnote. True love cannot be quenched nor bought. To attempt to buy it is to despise it. And that's a great way of putting it. To try to buy love is to despise love. Okay? There's not enough money, and we're trying to mix apples and oranges. Yeah, Carol. Yeah. Okay, Carol's bringing up a neat story, from the book of Acts, I assume. The man who wants to come to Peter and essentially buy the Holy Spirit, buy the gift of the Holy Spirit, buy the power. Hey, yes, what can I give you to get this power? Okay. Yeah, that's a great analogy, Carol. That's just wonderful. That brings it home, because in our material world, when wealth brings power, we think, okay, if I got enough money, I can buy pretty much whatever I want. And if I've got enough money, I can buy the wife of my dreams. And there may be some ladies out there for sale like that, but most human beings don't think like that. Okay, and so to try to turn your loving relationship into something as mercenary as a monetary transaction, I mean, yes, it would be utterly scorned. And then from there's the discussion about we think it's her brothers saying, we have a little sister, she has no breasts, and all this stuff. What's interesting about that, and I don't have a slide on it, but let me just point this out. What's interesting about this is that the brothers are essentially trying to protect herself, protect the girl. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to protect her from all these guys, et cetera, et cetera. And essentially what she says in verse 10, hey, I am a wall. My breasts are fully formed. I'm sorry, those are her words, not mine. And I can take care of myself, brothers. Okay? She's had this thing with her brothers throughout the song. They're the ones who made her go out into the vineyard and get sunburnt and suntanned and all this stuff. And now they're trying to be her protector. And she's essentially saying, I don't need your protection. Okay? I don't need your protection. And again, this is a very feminist song. written many centuries before Christ, and the scholars will debate whether it was 2 centuries before Christ or 10 centuries before Christ, but it was written long before Christ. And then there's that passage about Solomon having a vineyard. Once again, she is asserting herself in verse 12. My vineyard is my very own, is for myself. You, O Solomon, you can keep your money. That's what she's saying. You can have your 1,000. The keepers of the fruit can have their hundreds. My vineyard is mine, and I choose what to do with it. Very assertive language. And then we get to the end. Come away, my beloved, be as a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. What in the world? This is no way to end the song. There's no happily ever after. There's no kiss with the snow falling in Los Angeles. There's, but they're together. And actually, I love the way this ends. The more I think about it, when you see the end of the movie, the couple has gone through everything they've gone through, and in every movie it's always the same. And they end the movie with the kiss, and they start rolling the credits. And you think, okay, they're good now for the rest of their life, right? Are they? No, they're not. And we know they're not, okay? If you've been married for more than 6 months, you know that they're not good for the rest of their life.
Spoil it.
Okay? But here's what happens. And I've been thinking a whole lot about this recently, and I won't tell you all the reasons why. But I've been thinking a lot about this. We have this idea in our romantic world that if we do something right at the very beginning, then everything's going to be fine all the way through. If we find the right person, we'll be good. If we court the right way, it will be good. If we get engaged the right way, it will be good. If we have the right wedding, it will be good. We always think that there's something I can do today that's going to guarantee the rest of my life. And we can't do that. We live in time. And time is a series of moments. And we have to have each moment be right. And we cannot depend on what we did 42 years ago. Carol and I will have just celebrated our 42nd wedding anniversary. I could say, honey, I told you 42 years ago I love you, and if that ever changes, I'll let you know. Okay? That wouldn't have got me to 42 years. Okay? This is just a moment in time. And what they're suggesting is they're going to keep having moments in time. They're not going to rely on this moment in time to carry them through the rest of their lives. Okay? Scholars disagree as to what this is. Come away, my beloved, be like a gazelle or young stag on the mountains of spices. She is either telling him to go away or to come to her. And I think it's the latter. She's telling her, basically him, to stay with her. Come. Be like a gazelle in the mountains of spices. We talked about this back in chapter 2, verse 17. She says the exact same thing there. And the idea is she's inviting him to make love to her. Gazelles are known to be very lustful animals. And that's why they're talked about in the song. And the mountains of spices, again, a weird allusion to her upper anatomy. And she's inviting him. And it ends. Not to say that we got this all figured out for the rest of our lives, but this is our moment right now. And tomorrow we're going to have another moment just like it. And the next day we're going to have another moment just like it. Okay, with that, it is 10:20. Allison went to her post. And so what I want to do, Phil, I loved your suggestion several months ago. I've got the video from the Bible Project, 7-minute video that summarizes what we've been trying to talk about, and I love their summary of it. So let's go ahead and try to play that. If you're watching online, you want to watch it, just go to YouTube, put in Bible Project.
The Song of Songs.
Song
It's
of
a
Songs.
well-known but not so well understood book of the Bible. It's 8 chapters of love poetry. And while there is an introduction and a conclusion, the book doesn't have any kind of rigid literary design, and that's because it's a collection of poems. They're not meant to be dissected or taken apart. They're meant to be read as a flowing whole and simply enjoyed. The first line of the book tells us that it's the Song of Songs, which is a Hebrew idiom like the Holy of Holies or the King of Kings. It's a Hebrew way of saying the greatest thing. So this is the greatest song of all songs. Then we're told in the first line that this Song of Songs is of Solomon, which could mean that he's the author. His name does begin the book, after all. But as you read the poems, you discover that the main voice is that of a woman called the Beloved. And while there is also a male voice, it does not seem to be Solomon's. Solomon is mentioned a couple times in the poems, but he's never a speaker. And you do have to admit, Solomon is a very odd candidate as the author of this book, given the fact that he had 700 wives. For the lovers in the Song of Songs, they are the only ones in the world for each other. So the of Solomon likely means in the wisdom tradition of Solomon. He was known for his wisdom, his poetry, his love of learning about every part of life. And Solomon became the father of wisdom literature in Israel. And so his legacy is here carried on through a collection of love poems that explores the human experience of love and sexual desire. The opening poem introduces us to the basic theme of this book. We hear the voice of the young woman who delights in her man, a shepherd. Now, she's not married to him yet, but it becomes clear that they're engaged and they cannot wait to be together. From the introduction, the poems flow back and forth from the woman's voice to the man's, shifting from scene to scene without any kind of clear linear sequence or storyline. The poems move in these symphonic cycles, and key images and ideas get repeated and developed. So, one of the basic themes uniting the poems is the intense desire that this couple has for each other, expressed through their constant seeking and finding. So after the opening poem, they're separated but on the hunt for one another. So the woman calls out, or she'll wake up from a dream or go looking for her lover, and more than once they'll find each other, they'll embrace, and then right when things start to get a bit racy, the scene will suddenly end and a new one will start. They're separated, looking for each other, and on it goes. Another repeated theme is the joy of the couple's physical attraction for one another. So multiple times they'll pause and describe each other with these elaborate metaphors. And here it's very helpful to know that these images and metaphors in Hebrew poetry are not primarily visual. If you try and paint a picture of these people based on the metaphors, you will end up with something that looks very, very strange. What you're supposed to do is reflect on the meaning of these images as they relate to the man and the woman. So you'll read through the poetic cycles, and the tension will keep building, and their desire and joy and attraction. And this spiraling repetition is a poetic way of heightening and focusing on the mystery and power of sexual love. It all comes together in the conclusion, which pauses to summarize what these poems are all about. Love is as strong as death. Its passions are as severe as the grave. Its flashes are of fire, a divine flame. Many waters cannot extinguish love. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for love, he would be utterly scorned. The poem highlights the power and the intensity of love, how it's both beautiful but also dangerous. Like fire, love can destroy people if it's abused, or be life-giving if it's protected. Ultimately, love expresses the insatiable human longing to know and be fully known and desired by another. Love is one of the most transcendent and mysterious experiences in human life, and as a part of the Bible's wisdom tradition, this book says it's a gift from God. After this, there's an odd poem about Solomon trying to do what the previous poem just said was impossible, to buy love. The woman rejects Solomon's offer, and then the book concludes with the man and the woman. They're separate once more on the hunt for each other. He calls to hear her voice. She begs him to run away with her, and that's how the book ends. Just totally open-ended. But that's a lot like love. which never truly concludes, because there's always more to discover and pursue in your beloved. And so true love has no end, and neither does this book. Now, through history, the big question raised by the Song of Songs is, what on earth is love poetry doing in the Bible? There have been three main interpretations of this book throughout history. In Jewish tradition, it's been read as an allegory, each character a symbol. So the woman is Israel, the man is God, and their love is a symbol of the covenant between God and Israel made at Mount Sinai and the giving of the Torah. This view flowed into the Christian tradition, but the characters were swapped. So it's about Christ's love for his people, the church. And this interpretation was inspired by Paul's words in Ephesians 5, that a Christian husband's love for his wife is a symbol of Christ's love for the church. What's interesting is that in the last 100 years, archaeological discoveries among Israel's ancient neighbors in Egypt and Babylon has turned up all kinds of ancient love poetry that's very similar in language and imagery to the Song of Songs. We see that love poetry was a meaningful part of Israel's cultural environment, which has led most scholars today to view the Song of Songs as what it presents itself to be, an arrangement of Israelite love poetry reflecting on the divine gift of love. But that doesn't mean that it's only ancient love poetry. There's a key feature of these poems that sticks out when you read them as a part of the Old Testament, and that's the overwhelming use of garden imagery. There are powerful echoes of the Garden of Eden and the idyllic scene between the married couple in the early chapters of Genesis. So the image of the man and the woman naked and vulnerable, but completely unified and safe with one another, this resonates in the background of the Song of Songs. It's as if in these poems we are witnessing the love of a couple whose relationship is untainted by selfishness and sin. And so ultimately the song holds out hope that even though our own relationships are so often distorted by selfishness, love is a transcendent gift. And it's meant to point us to something greater, to the gift of God's love that will one day permeate and transform his beloved world. And that's what the Song of Songs is all about.
Okay, so in 7 minutes, they told you what I've been trying to say for 17 weeks. I love these guys. Again, if you want to see that, it's called The Bible Project. They're on YouTube. I've subscribed to their channel. They're a couple of great guys. That was Tim Mackey who was speaking, and they've got a lot of videos on pretty much all the books of the Bible. And just go to Bible Project on YouTube and just search for whatever book that you want to find, and it'll pop right up. I just love the way that he ended there about the garden imagery. We didn't talk a lot about that. I did find some articles about that where this the song is almost like a resurrection of the Garden of Eden. It's almost showing us what the Garden of Eden should have looked like, and what it should be. So it's almost like a redemption song in that sense. Neat stuff. Okay, so with that, we're going to end the Song of Songs. If you don't remember, before we went on this little sidetrack for the Song of Songs, we were in the Gospels. And so next week we'll go back into the Gospels, just looking at the life and words of Jesus. But last week Susan asked me, and she was asking it of all of us, how has this song affected us? How has this song affected you? And the one thing that I've already noticed is as I'm looking at going back into the Gospels, is that now when I read the red letters of my New Testament, I'm going to hear the emotion of the song in the background. I'm going to hear the tenderness of the love of Jesus when I am reading the Gospels. It's not going to just be a religious book. I'm not going to think of stained glass windows and churchy type scenes. I'm going to think more of a garden with Jesus and his bride, and the tenderness that he has and the love that he has for her. It's going to make me read the Gospels differently, and that may come out as we move on from here. So with that, let me close this in prayer. and we'll move on. Father, we do thank you. We thank you for this song. We thank you for this song as a reminder of what you created in the garden, perhaps as a redemption of that garden scene. We thank you for this song to remind us of what a married love can be about. We thank you for this song as a reminder of the relationship that you had with Israel, that you still have with Israel, and that your son Jesus has with the church. And I realize even that prayer evokes all sorts of Trinitarian imagery that I don't understand. But Father, I do thank you for the love that you have for us, the love that prompted you to tell Hosea to marry an adulterous woman, and that after she betrayed him, to go after her and bring her home. That type of never-ending, loyal, fierce love. And I pray, Father, that you will drive that image deep into the depths of our hearts. However it manifests itself in each of our lives differently, we just give each other grace for that to happen. But Father, I pray that this will become a reality to us. Be with us in the service now. Be with Pastor as he brings the message on your kingdom. Be with the worship team as they guide us into worshiping you. We just thank you for all this in Jesus' name. Amen.